5 August 2021. As what's been going on within the world, which has been a very interesting thing. We're first going to start off with domestic, well, partly domestic. The I have not read the Mansion Bill, which is 600 billion supposedly, and I stated before that I expect to see at least $6 trillion in outputs for that $6 billion, since he says it is a what's it called, an investment. So if it's going to be an investment, I want to see outputs of an investment, and for other reasons, but which I will be reading the bill now that Cinema has shown who she has shown who our donors are. And what do I mean by that is there was two parts within the bill. Manchin was on Fox, and the well-paid Fox anchor, I don't think she was an opinion host, was talking about this $400,000 or something like that. So you had two different things. You had the $400,000 for your high earner workers, or your or carried interest. In other words, who's she going to protect? Who's she going to protect? Super high earning workers, for $500,000, or these multi-billion-dollar hedge fund managers, like, what handful of them. She went with the hedge fund managers with the keeping the carried interest loophole in. It was designed to see who her donors are. Now we know who her donors are. As she's been said, they're going to bankroll her. Well, it's actually a battle between her and McRaven, who's going to eventually try to pull the not so far right Republicans into voting. But we'll see what happens. Bad news is you put some nutcases on the ballot, and the good news is at least you have their data, which might be useful. But to do it again twice would be courting very dangerous situations for the Democrats. Instead of saying what we can do for you and how we are helping you or whatever, instead of being the bought out party, throwing the working class under the bus. Yeah, yeah, actually get back to their working class roots, Ritz, whatever was that. So, the other things I'll be looking for is when I read this, does the bill raise revenues while keeping us competitive? And I personally think this is just a small part. This is one piece of a much bigger pie. Definitely got to get out there to, um, what's it called? Win Georgia, win. Like, one part about the Stacey Abrams I thought about with the Georgia thing is, the rurals we don't like big government, but we do want to have some shit. Tell a story. I mean, Brian Kemp. There was a point a couple of weeks ago, several weeks ago, where Stacey Abrams she was speaking to a bunch of like African Americans, and getting into the call and response, getting into her rhythm, and then Brian Kemp put out a statement, blah 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 blah, and then she kind of quit being that energetic. That was the purpose of that statement. It was to cut off her from connecting kinetically with people. It's a language tack I've seen over and over again. It's always the same thing. It was like this one guy wanted to get just want me to sign something, and does this little bark, and you're like, what the hell? And that's designed to make you associate this behavior with their anger. They gotta go fuck themselves. I just kind of looked at him and go, you can be angry all you want, asshole. But so that's basically the same thing that Brian Kemp did with Stacey Abrams on that argument. So she needs to go back into I have not heard back from Don as far as anything, so I'm not going to say anything because I can't just because of the situation I'm in. Can't just give things away for free, but the same because I am. I should say how is it? Can't get involved technically, but my training is in business and marketing, so that's something I can do. So it's kind of a very interesting thing, and I like to get paid. As I said, I am so tired. People wonder why don't you. This is like you can't sit there and have a conversation with persons when you're sitting there running circles around their head, and they're like, "Well, if you think you're, all right." Then when I do, then they fucking try to sabotage. So it's kind of a waste of fucking time. That's the way bigotry works. Steal your shit, and you just finally get tired of it. Like, okay, fuck you guys. It's kind of like this female next door neighbor. Every time she's probing and peering and stuff. Like she got like the gals were having a good time, mellow, interesting, whatever. Pretty sure she sparked off an argument between the younger gal and this dude and the dude. And she, because whenever we come, and then everyone comes out, and she's just sitting there as I'm watching her, studying her, listening to her. She, I go, okay, she did this on purpose. So she created the chaos to see how everyone reacts to that chaos. And then she's going to make another move again here in a couple of days. She won't be able to keep it in. It's just, so, cluster bees in their tough fucking telephones. It's hilarious. It's like an arsonist comes in and watches the fire that they created, and you always can see it. They always speak in the same way. So, so it's the same kind of thinking that's going on there. So where was I? Oh, yeah, because I can see these things, and I know most people cannot. There is a value proposition that is extremely valuable. Where was I? Oh yeah, so one thing is I'll say this last piece, and then I can get paid for the rest of this. That conversation with that with Dawn in a bit, whatever a bit is, it changes. But a one of the things is it's don't want big government, but they do want things. They still want the hospital in their county. They still want the clinics in their county. They still want to take care of their wife if they get sick. Their wife still wants to be able to drive their husband to the hospital. They don't want to be double hammered into debt. So, for instance, you're out on the farm, or big farmers are taking their shit, or if they're the roving type that are not really farmers, they just rove from one farm to the next and do the harvesting. These prices and costs are going up. With inflation going up, and big ag kicking you in the teeth. What's a farmer? Some farmers have found that sometimes government can help and protect us, protect themselves. If you listen to what I just said, there was a process. Figure out the process, and you understand how it clicks through people's minds. It's actually very. It's not that I didn't come up with that one. I definitely learned that one. So, getting through to these rural folks, nobody cares. Oh, it's not an OBGYN. What the fuck's that supposed to mean? Well, your freaking wife starts bleeding out in her lady parts, and you got to drive to the unit doctor. Well, that doctor's, 4 counties, nearest doctor's 4 counties over. And, well, maybe if I can get her to the nearest clinic. Well, the nearest clinic's 2 counties over. And then when you get to that clinic, then they got to speed rush you to another county, and then they got to medevac her to 3 counties over because she's bleeding out too long. So 5 hours later, barely living, all because there wasn't a freaking an OBGY, because there wasn't a doctor within the county, because Brian Kemp did not. If you didn't want to take, because we can understand not taking federal funds, because with money that means you're hooked on it, but he didn't do anything to help Georgia fund these rural hospitals and these rural services for small farmers. Instead, he's hooking up big farm, big time ag, out of state ag ag guys and not looking out for the small time farmer. See the argument? And this is all true, actually. It's not just a straw man argument. That's one of the ways. You don't, if you don't want to take the big money, that's fine. But because you're acknowledging their fears, but it's also saying because of that, this is what else is happening, and how do we? At least he could have done this, but he's not even going to try. But he's going to give you a line of shit and saying how I'm dangerous. See how that works, and then say it with passion, because that's when she's actually connects with people. She has that connecting point. But Kim keeps her boxed into being not passionate and just looking to be a regular thing, a regular politician, while he still has his rage eyes. That pinpoint, that's rage. You look at it, you look at his eyes. There's a pinpoints. He's just a rageful person, angry little piece of shit. Personally, I've met people like I've dealt with them, and they'll come up and flare, and they start thinking they can come up, and they'll just look at it like, yeah, nah, dude, that ain't working for me. Usually, they realize that I'm actually crazier than them, and I don't really care. But then it's just there's that cool rage. There's two different types of flames. You have the orange flame. Everyone sees it and they know that's rageful, it's powerful, it's light, it's bright, and it's easy to control, sort of. Then there's the white light. When you're doing you remember in your high school, you're doing your chem and you're turning the Bunsen burner, you don't want it all, you want it to be a nice blue, bright light flame that's extra hot. It doesn't look very hot. It's kind of pretty almost. It's kind of neat. Kind of almost ignore it from a distance. Which flame's the most dangerous? Brian Kemp's not very dangerous. He's just very loud and angry. It's kind of like Trump. Trump gets into that same kind of rage as well. Anyways, so right now, you see, Democrats have, this is the opportunity Black African Americans and workers have waited for. All workers, including Caucasian workers and all that, at least 60 years since Nixon and the theocrats started sending our jobs overseas to get at the black folks to change things. Black African America, you've been waiting 400 years to do this. This is your opportunity. Russia's going to believe. Russia is telling Russia when Lavrov went over to Africa, he was telling Africa, stay still, don't do shit because America's going to collapse. That's what that little Lavrov meeting with, and then the Saudis do. MBS is disrespecting our president because it's, when he was over there. So that was the reason, from my perspective. I didn't say anything. I just wanted to see what they're going to do. Let them show their cards. Their cards have been shown. So they're expecting the collapse of America. Then you got the Chinese over there. Nancy Pelosi goes over to China. And everyone's like, whoa, Pelosi's pissing them off. Fuck them. I don't give a damn. But the main thing is, and then you sit on Fox, Kevin McCarthy's talking about now it needs to be bipartisan, and the lying piece of shit. I just, man is just, he's pathetic. He's absolutely pathetic. Everything counter to what, republicanism was supposed to be about integrity and shit. He is just a slimy individual. I mean, you can say all politicians. Well, majority of politicians are, but he takes slimy to another level, and it's not slimy competence; it's slimy incompetence. Like high probability of actively participating in a coup d'état, which is treason. But we'll get to that later. So, you were saying that. So China's babbling is them saying, we'll essentially say we'll interfere with your internal business if we want, because you're interfering with ours, right? Hey, fuck you. because they're not going to stop at Taiwan. Xi Jinping, by his own words, his own thinking, is not going to stop at Taiwan. Let me explain. Let's see, let's go with this whole 9 dash line. Of course not. Okay, so let's go with this 9 dash line. Don't care. Boom. Okay. Okay. Now you see what you're saying. Now this is an Indian guy, obviously, talking, just because they have to, Hindi, English kind of has a different rhythm. But they're saying this 9 dash line, right? They're throwing this bullshit. We already know that they've told Vietnam you can't drill for oil. This is Taiwan here. This is Philippines. We see where they're hammering the Philippines. What they're basically saying is, oh, okay, this is just our territorial waters, which says that Vietnam is their territory, Cambodia, Laos is their territory. All of these nations that border this 9 dash line will eventually be considered their territory. Also, it removes the ability to ship goods and services without paying them a toll fee. So all those countries, they can sit there and say, "Oh, screw the U.S." But who are they going to call when China tells them we're taking your shit? Because that's eventually what Xi's going to do. He's empire building. He even said it. Once again, just listen to your enemy. They'll tell you what they're about to do. Most of the time. So, yeah, as far as they're concerned, I'm their enemy because I'm laying out how they have for decades been slowly undermining America. They had no ever wanted to ever become non-authoritarian. They kind of eased up, fooled us for a bit because played our bigotry. There you got Mitch McConnell's wife. And stole all of our technology, and then stole our manufacturing through our own greed. And now, implicitly using Russia to turn us into an authoritarian regime, which always ends in more war because everyone has to play who has a bigger pecker. And as we're seeing in Russia, it's not the elites. That's why they usually, when just like, when the communists come over, the first thing they kill the people with education. Go figure. And the other thing is we're talking about the whole deep state thing that Rump was banning battling. Basically, they're talking about the deep state are all those people who do their jobs, work and keep your food safe, work and keep your, inspect your housing, do those things that create higher standards of living because we've demanded it. Yeah, So it was when I just watched a video where this home inspector went and showed this deck. It was built perfectly, all the reasons. And the inspector said, "Yeah, like this is up to standard. This is a 0 point, well constructed, high value piece of craftsmanship. And this is the 0 point where this is the lowest level we'll accept. And trust me, if people can get away with it, they will. And they'll give you a splinter of crap and then charge you 10 times the amount for it. That's why we have standards. And the main standards is freedom of and from religion by a state-sanctioned religion, secularism. And the Betsy DeVosses and the MBT, Marjorie Bigot Green, or MBG, whatever, is going after that because they can't compete. When they can't compete, pull the race card. Another thing is I'm looking through a situation. We have the unions. Okay, how did right now. The main thing is, okay, you get the union. The structure is you get the unions, and you get the put the first is make it hard to get a union vote. Then you get the union vote that goes through. Then it's like, oh, we can't do a contract, and they string it out for years. Congress needs to put in a bill to say, okay, you have 6 months to once the vote is clear, you have 6 months, 3 months non-binding arbitration. After the 3 months, okay, government gets in, does a non-binding arbitration. After 6 months, government gets in, steps in, and goes, "This is a binding arbitration." Oh, and the arbiters. So we have three arbiters, or one government, and then and then one union, one one from the chosen by, and one chosen by the unions. Now, here's the thing, of course, with it's always hilarious about Republicans babbling about big government, but then they go to run the government to try to control who the big government is. Anyways, take it away from the people, especially strange since corporations are just by their initial charter are supposed to be for public good. So persons, unions getting part of the profits, or negotiating for better wages and being and also for part of the profits, just like the CEO gets. They get this package of cheap stocks. Why can't the workers get that package of cheap stocks so they could buy for themselves later on? Since they're all employees, and so you have these three different entities, and then you can say, okay, we're going to go into binding arbitration, or binding arbitration with the ability to take it to court, possibly. But I'd suggest just do binding arbitration with the ability to pick the three arbiters, with the government picking the middle. But that's something that happens because that needs to be done, because if we do not get unions back and people getting part of these profits, they're going to tank the country and turn us into a bunch of poor people. It'd be like not even a third world country, like a fourth world country, 'cause that's what they want. Everyone poor, everyone broke. And then they think themselves, see what the damage the Koch brothers have done. It's horrifying. Anyways. So that's my thought on unions. We got Ukraine. They are asking, once again, of course, they're asking for weapons. But the main thing about weapons is military. The Western military is a mind as much as it is a weapon, and people being able to think in their mind is more important. Where it's a bottom up. It's a Western military is a bottom up, even though it's a top, bottom up as far as being a professional military. Where the conscript model of the Russian Federation is, cannon fodder, just cannon, move forward, can. So they're basically going to their old school stuff. So outsourcing fire and maneuver. I mean, maneuver to fire is what's necessary to take them out, or with fire and maneuver, either way. We're being able to go back and forth between them. Once again, see the flexibility of mind. So, with that said, Britain just said that we're going to do, was it 10,000 trainees, or 20,000 trainees a month. You need two others, you get 60,000 trainees, basic. That also gives your time of your more, right now you're in the counteroffensive, but also these second civilian brigades get training in maneuver to fire. That also gives them time to relax, and you can start rotating fresh troops to the front, and then moving them back, and then fresh troops, and then going into training. And then as each training iteration goes, you become more and more advanced as far as the ability to maneuver and fire faster. Let's see, which then actually at first is not going to make sense, but as it gets going, it gets faster and gets more dangerous. Another thing is, I was sitting there thinking through something, and one of the things I was looking at is those grad rockets. I needed something. If you're in Ukraine, two things. Another thing is, all right, we know that they're trying to The Russians, Chinese, are trying to block Ukrainians from doing trade or with Africa because they think Africa is their little labor and place they can snag crap from. Once again, recolonizing Africa. As you can see within the Congo, $13 billion per year of gold has been stolen by Russia, and that could have created over 10 years $1 trillion of economic activity. But they just keep these despot puppet governments in Africa so they can pillage the people, keep them poor, and then point to America when it's really them. Well, we've done our fair share, mind you. But right now, it's definitely them. As the Chinese are basically, by the videos I've seen, the Chinese just are, they're as bigoted, if not as worse, than the American Southern bigots, because everybody, to them, anyone who's Han is one. They're not. You don't get to be individualized if you're not as a Han Chinese. So what I was thinking is, oh yeah, I need to bolt on to the grad rockets. It can look like in the end you need one. You have 4 stabilizers in the rear, stabilizers in and then like 4 ailerons that kind of like a sidewinder. 2 at the top, 2's north, south, east, and west. So it moves like a sidewinder as it's maneuvered from the front, and it's GPS, and the GPS radio cannot be integrated. You can use Arduino, but the GPS radio has to be separate, so it's a plug-in to the GPS radio, so I can switch it out if necessary as technology goes. But because the data stream is going to be the same, so you need something like that can be bolted onto those grad rockets. Therefore, and in that it has to be able to do waypoints. So you can sit there and yes, like was it 28? So 28 grad rockets are stacked in. So you can Bluetooth it. So the idea is go up, stack the rockets in. You bolt on this top to the front, and then you bolt onto this stabilizer wing. Right. It's very repetitive. Little Bluetooth. Open up your iPad. Do the little thing. You go, okay, you have your 28, and you go, and each rocket, as it's Bluetooth on, so it's put on, then you flip the switch, turn on the Bluetooth, connect that, and then you say, okay, waypoint. So the rocket might take off, waypoint out, say it's heading north, but then you waypoint it to where it heads west on northwest for 100 meters. And then also it heads up and then also pops higher. So you might have 3 of those that do with that. Then you have another 3, and it's going northwest, and then also changes and then pops up higher in altitude, and then drops back down, then stops and heads back north again. So now you got all these different grad rockets going multiple different directions across different waypoints, and all returning to the exact same point and devastating an area. Therefore, scrambling. Using a low-tech weapon and turning it into a high-tech weapon. Shouldn't be that shouldn't be that difficult. The main thing is the rear stabilizers fitting into the tube launcher, and the front could actually kind of stick out because which houses the control surfaces and the GPS receiver. It's still a dumb rocket because all it is a GPS receiver with with waypoints, which can be very, very much easily done with technical, as far as the software and the slight hardware and creating the servos and then testing. What that does is gives you a lot more precision and a lot more lethality and psychological perspectives. Now you can maybe update it later on to putting a GSM receiver system. You can change it in mid-flight. So if you get a wild and then turn the rocket itself into a wild weasel, where if it's known where it could have anyways, say intel comes in that all of a sudden as it took off in flight, we see a rocket intercept battalion. Also, if it's change it in mid-flight and then take out that. Overload that intercept battalion and take those out, which is another thing that needs to be done. Is these air defense, these small SAMs need to be taken out if possible, which rolls me to my next thought. Okay. So Lavrov, last grad rockets, mind. Oh yeah, now finally the next one is homemade cruise missiles. We they're say you can then take, because if you create that grad rocket, then you can take 3D print jet engines. They don't have to be large. They can be actually be the size of a grad rocket. High, they don't either. The main thing is the main reason I don't want something like this is you. Since I want you to want something like this, is on the Dnieper River. You cannot allow anything to cross. Anytime they put a pontoon bridge, has to be hammered. Anytime they and you can do a cruise missile, like a homemade cruise missile, $5,000 to $6,000, easily launched, because you can create the jet engines, 3D print the jet engines, put it in a tube, 50-pound warhead. Two types: you either have a shape charged or explosive ball bearing warhead, anti personnel. So it just, you're hammering anything, anyone that wants to cross over the Dnieper River is destroyed. Keep those the Kherson invaders contained in that area, and then constantly hammering them. Yeah, they're eventually, because they do not maneuver to fire, they need a lot of artillery, and if you can keep those supply lines down, they have to be way more efficient, which then means they might start doing fire. They might switch to the Western style, but by that time, their ability to do combined arms is extremely degraded. Meanwhile, you're doing whatever you're doing. This is the only reason I'm saying that this is so civilians understand what's kind of going on. Of course, the generals are doing something completely different, maybe, probably, but within general, because if you can take out that 50,000, it puts a lot more pressure. Right now, Putin's getting all of his forces from the east in the poorer regions. So as these bodies keep stacking up, they're going to start going, I'm good with that, but we still need to keep Russia together. We don't need them taking on other people's territory. Second thing is, all right, at the beginning of the war, I'm pretty sure the parliament, Tulsi Gabbard was on Fox speaking for the family, telling Fox, "Oh, they're switching it. It's this big thing about against authoritarian versus democracy." Well, it is authoritarianism versus democracy, and they think what Urban is doing is not authoritarianism; it's authoritarianism. All the voting is for is a referendum on how many of his people he still has. It has nothing to do with actually governing the country or democracy, or it's just pure autocracy. So the family is just changing. Is changing their tack, and that's one of the reasons why one of their embeds is trying to is boosting these crazies, these coup d'état deniers, because the family wants an authoritarian United States. So one of the things they're trying to say is, okay, you've taken away freedom of speech by, which is probably true, because they've said that Tulsi Gabbard is speaking Russian talking points, which she is. It's just making my head spin. In the But freedom of press is one of the things as far as getting into the European Union. But before so doing, I would speak to the Germans and the Netherlands. They have great programs to teach people how to find and spot mis and disinformation, and they constantly keep upgrading it. It would be suggested that they do so, such as a thing. It's going to be a lot harder because there's so much disinformation in Ukraine, and you have the oligarchs, and you have that who are dependent upon Putin, but it is necessary to do the things that are difficult when it is difficult, so that when it's easy, when it is, so it becomes easier. And that extends to freedom of different parties. At the beginning of the war, you killed all the 11 parties, but allowing them back in, and that was the parliament, that was not Zelensky. She stated that it was a parliament, she by Tulsi Gabbard, but it wasn't, he did not unilaterally do that. If I remember correctly, it was the parliament that did that. And that the others had said, yeah, we're good with that. They need to be reinstated after they go back through, after you instate a way of showing people how to find and spot Russian disinformation. Because that also leads into the war effort, because critical thinking is the most dangerous thing to an autocrat. Okay, so China, as I said, Pelosi's visit was a warning to China. We have internal business to take care of, and don't get cute. And meanwhile, they're just being their little way they've been for the last 5 years under Xi. Xi's all quiet, but you hear how they bluster him loud. That's Xi. Remember, and that's back to what Kevin McCarthy was saying in his BS. And the reason this is very important is that the speaker had to go to China is because, as you stated, China and Russia are one and the same. They've been working very hard, working with to destabilize America. These right-wing groups, the gun nut culture, the flat out bigots, they have amplified them. That was their purpose, and they're just doing a very good job. They, but their boy made a mistake. He attempted not just an insurrection, but he actually planned it, which is now a coup d'état. By planning it, it switched from an insurrection to a coup d'état. He can still be impeached for treason, and then held to for treason. He can held. So first, it's up to Congress. Congress has to hold the presidency. This is what people keeps pissing me off. Is if people say, "Oh, we told the president." No, it's you put the president in place, then you get Congress to tell the president what to do. It's not. It's. Let's see here. All right, so we vote for the president over here. He says you are to execute the laws we, the people, say we want executed, and then the spirit and the letter of the law is balanced out between in the Supreme Court, which is a bunch of BS right now because they are all activist judges. They not all of them, but no, it's pretty much activists put on the Supreme Court to destroy by the Federalist. I should be called the Anti-Federalist Committee or whatever, which means they want to destroy federalism. Even though they say they're Federalist, they're Anti-Federalist, and they put their name that way as tongue-in-cheek, so people, and it's actually fairly, people get it confused in their mind. Federalist, they are not Federalist. They're Anti-Federalist. They want to destroy the country. And these judges that they put on the bench that are Federalist, quote, Federalist, or should be called Anti-Federalist judges. So they want to destroy the 14th Amendment. So, by the Constitution, by allowing the insurrectionists to step foot onto the floor of Congress, so this is Congress, onto the floor of Congress, by allowing and then not punishing the office holder of the president by saying, Mitch McConnell is saying, well, it goes over they did criminal stuff. So basically, they're saying it is now up to the executive to take care of the last executive, and then they can start going, well, who are they? Who they should see it's political because see that president's going after the last president, and there's like a third world country. Well, first off, it was Mitch McConnell's job to police the presidency. It's Congress's job to police the presidency, not the president policing the other president. By allowing the president to step foot onto Congress, only good thing about stare decisis is they say our precedent doesn't exist anymore, but they'll be selective. It's kind of like the way they read the Bible. But by pure precedent, this is the way the government's supposed to be right now. This, because Congress did not act, this one second. This is what the government really is. The presidency pretty much does what he wants, and he can tell the Congress to go stick a fork in it. And everyone's all acting like everything's normal, everything's normal. This is not what is normal. Congress has no power. And the next president or the next person who's smart enough to realize this is going to take Congress for a ride if Congress doesn't pull its head out of its ass. And return it here. So right now, so let's get back to what we do know. We know that the president, first he went, as reported by Ari Melber, first he tried to do it legally. Then he tried to do, which is where the Electoral Count Act thing, tried to do some things, send it back to the electors. At this point, you were dealing with quasi-legal. You have Ted Cruz trying to strike a pose, some heroic BS bullshit. Yeah, you heroically trying to overthrow the government, trying to overturn the constitutional order. You fuck knuckle, whatever. And I mean, this was after January 6th. And as they were still talking about the certification of the vote in the hall, they're still doing this whole thing, going against the will of the people, which means everybody, not just the people you do or who vote with you. So you have 8 senators and 130 some odd congresspersons. You know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Marjorie, was at the planning session before she had gotten into Congress. So therefore, the Jan 6 Commission needs to call her because she was a civilian at that time. Also need to call any of the more high-ranking, any of the senators and any of the congresspersons who were actively involved in a coup d'etat. This is a coup. This was a staged, planned coup. And a coup is treason. It's just another form of saying treason. That we directed a treasonous act against the United States government. And the person who directed that is being shown with need more is Donald Trump. Now the thing is he's going to do is create his flying monkeys, which are the Republican Party, and they're daring. Marjorie Taylor Greene said, "Oh, Trump's going to pick me," basically saying daring the Democrats and Black African America to stand up, daring them, because everyone's assuming that Black African Americans are too stupid, too undereducated And the only time they ever say anything is after they've been squeezed a bit, and it's just letting off some steam. Let's be real. That's pretty much how black African Americans tend to act. They'll attack anyone who tries to show them anything different. They've been trained this way for years, generations. So the Russians are expecting this to just to roll through. And quite honestly, after 2 years, I'm kind of I'm assuming this is what's going to happen as well. But as Malcolm Nance says, and I have said before, these aren't just Republicans. These are fascist white nationalists who are trying to play Christian white nationalist, and they have every intent of doing the worst things that Stephen Miller was trying to do. They're just inhumane, horrible, barbaric. They're just horrible human beings, and they've stated what their plans are. They know this is their chance. Trump is their man. It has to be taken down. And Charlemagne was stated, "Oh, every Democrats have tried everything except courage." Yeah, maybe not in your world, maybe in your world, but I doubt you would have just sat there and gone through the hell I've gone through. But hey, I'm not going to upset with that unless they don't do anything. So Charlemagne and hip hop. Question is, we saw it's like with the Kardashians. The only time they actually did anything is as long as they were trying to keep their brand, which was only to work with the persons who are the lowest, would be considered the lowest and the weakest part of that black African American, so they can say, well, see, I can control their barking dogs, which was the prison thing. Granted, that was still a good thing, but anything else outside of that, they've not done anything. It's one of those, oh, yeah, I did something, but I didn't really do anything to actually help you. I just made it trying to make it look like it. Meanwhile, I'm trying to do something in the back, just keep the status quo because that's where their money is. That's just the way it is. That's what they've done. They've shown this over the last 2 years, especially. You know, Kathleen Kennedy has been relentlessly attacking using her Hollywood platform black African Americans. I cannot believe how bigoted she is, but now I'm like, yeah, well, it makes sense because the externalization of, cluster Bs are just externalized self. They can't deal with their own self, so they have to externalize it to others. But they need others to say that externalization took place. It took place. It's really a miserable way of living, personally, I think. But I can also see why they would do that as a child. So here's the thing: my letter that I've sent to Congress should arrive today within the First Amendment rights of speech as a redress of grievance, that my right to religion, not just much religion is being attacked, but my right that I have a redress, that a grievance that Congress did not act to hold a president of the United States to an account, and did not hold, more importantly, did not hold itself to an account for planning and being actively participating in a treasonous act. The congresspersons need to be removed. That includes Mitch McConnell. Chuck Schumer is going to try to be all chummy because he's been with, no. They knew. They stated it on the floor. It's every one of them who made those little things. Well, blah blah. Well, technically, no. Your job is to uphold the Constitution. Upholding the Constitution is as Congress upholding the president to high crimes and misdemeanors. This wasn't him doing sketchy shit on the behalf of the country. This was him doing sketchy shit on his personal behalf. And then he had gotten all of you other ballless, gonadialist individuals, such as Mitch McConnell, who's nothing more than a traitor anyway, as far as I'm concerned. Well, I shouldn't say that, but he's like, oh, we need to get back to the people's business. You mean what, the people's business? You mean overthrowing the government? Because you've been at it for 50 years, but you wanted to do it legally, so that way you say, well, we're doing everything legally. No, motherfuckers. He needs to go. And so, Charlemagne and hip-hop, here's your courage moment. You know, you saw Tiffany Cross, same behavior that put Trump in the White House in the first place. Because most people wanted Bernie. Most of the dudes wanted Bernie, trying to, but no, and they wouldn't have a conversation. Nobody would say anything. Because they pull that, so I'm not black enough, or he's not this. No, it's like, well, fuck them white folks, and da-da-da-da, and acting like a complete fucking idiot. Your intelligent people act like morons. And so you see the behavior of Ms. Cross, see the behavior of Dr. whatever her name was. You know, I'm not blaming all black African American women, but you see as a cultural, this is the situation. This is, you have to fucking face the mirror and say, this is exactly what happened, and deal with it correctly so it doesn't happen next time. And the main thing is, you need to quit putting down your better men. You're upholding these people, no education, no care about anybody else, and you're just feeding, which is the plan and the goal, to feed the prison industrial complex. So you keep keeping that loop, that prison loop going, and then you don't vote, and then if you know right now you have this opportunity, and now they're going to scare you into not voting, not upholding, not marching to Washington, and first speaking out, then demanding, and then congregating. Because if you do not uphold the Constitution, if you do not demand that Mitch McConnell, if you know the January 6th committee shows in September going, these are the congresspersons and senators that were actively participating in the coup. These are the congresspersons and senators who did not uphold the Constitution by allowing the president to hold an insurrection and physically attack Congress. They betrayed their oath. The Democrats are going to have balls of steel. Because under the 14th Amendment, all those motherfuckers need to be kicked out. Because they stood on the floor and said that they knew it was Trump. We're not, the shaggy defense doesn't go. They allowed an insurrection to happen, and did not punish the office holder of the executive branch who started it. They allowed a coup d'etat, a treasonous act. They're allowing a treasonous act to happen, and they are not punishing, because it's Congress's job to punish the office holder of the President of the United States. It's not the next office holder's job. And this is why Trump got to keep it going as a political thing. Now, so he's gonna call it a political thing anyway, so I'm gonna let you know right here, right now. You want the rest of the Build Back Better? You want voting rights? Yeah? You say you want voting rights? You want fair access to the polls? Okay. You want your kids to have a quality education, the build for the future. Okay. You want common sense gun reform, right? You want those things, right? Or is it just bullshit, talking points, no backbone? You want climate change? Oh, there's climate change in this bill. Yeah, there is. There is really good climate change. And once I go over, and on Monday I'm going to go through the whole weekend. I'll read this bill. Then Monday I'll give my thoughts on what's next, because I have an idea of what Manchin did, and so far, if I see it, if I want to look at the bill and I see it, then I'm like, okay, we can argue. Then it's cool. But I have to see it. I have to really actually read through it. If it, and I have an idea. Old man and his treachery. So, but if you want all of these things, you want to have unions have the opportunity to actually work in this country. You want to reset to where everyone gets a slice of the pie. Yeah, you want these things. You want the courts. Why do you think they stack the courts so you can, you know, you want to impeach Clarence Thomas? Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I'm not a big fan of expanding the courts because then that just leads to tit for tat. But you know, you want to sit there, impeach Clarence Thomas, also have an ethics. They say the Supreme Court has to have an ethics situation. Yeah, well, that's yeah, okay. All of this is on the book, but it all has to be done before we got until the end of the session to get us all done. Change history. Preferably get this done before elections, especially that part because of voter suppression. It's going to really be helpful in Georgia. You want all these things, everything. Here's the buffet. Yum, 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 yum. Time to ball up. Time to spine up. Get your gonadial fortitude, intestinal fortitude. All right, Charlemagne. Lay it out. Because they're going to say this anyways. They're going to try to politicize it. Because the senators did not vote to uphold the constitutional order, they were actively working towards an insurrection. They shall be removed. You need to have the guts to tell your Democratic senators and House Representatives to kick them out of Congress. If that's not good enough, because those who worked actively for those senators and congresspersons who actively worked to overthrow the government in a coup d'etat, working with the executive branch, because once it passed, all those persons that passed that point of the fake electors plot and they were still engaged, which means those who voted against certifying were still in that fake electors plot. They were participating in a coup d'etat at that point. If those guys hadn't walked down there, that might have been like a little gray iffy shit. Even though the fake electors were bullshit. But once they knew that it was an insurrection and they did not do so, they were now in dereliction of constitutional duty. They need to be removed. And once they are removed, you now need to have the gut balls. You pass all your shit. Everything, you shove it down their throats. We tried to be, we did a lot of bipartisan stuff. There's a lot of bipartisan stuff that happened this year. Awesome bipartisan stuff. Now it's balls time. We need 1 million people in Washington. And these happen quickly. You need to decapitate them. It's articles of impeachment, trial, all at once. Both sides, exact same time. Done with that, then, bam. pass through your bills, because by the time they're kicked out and the next crop is sworn in, you get what the hell you want done. No, you can't. No, that wouldn't be it. People's business first, then party business. So people's business is take out the senators, not take them out, uphold the constitutional law, duty, impeach with witnesses and with data and showing it, just put it to trial. The senators and the congresspersons who worked both in who voted, who did not vote to impeach on the insurrection, and then especially those who worked on the coup d'etat, which means they voted to not certify for a peaceful transition of power. Then you need to bring the former president, and you put him on trial. Once again, but as a coup d'etat. Double Jeopardy says you can't do an insurrectionist, and he's going to say this and that, and he's going to try to bring violence, which means he can then be put in jail because at that point he's a he's a civilian inciting a mob. During this time, you need to protect Congress. The people need to protect the people. So a lot of people believe it's that you hire a president and then you expect a president to do everything. No, you hire a president and then you have all these congresspersons telling this president what to do. And then the Supreme Court, within spirit and letter, balances the law. But Supreme Court, with its radical far-right agenda of a theocratic agenda, said the spirit is no longer secularism, which is unconstitutional. You see how this is going. Democratic Party, Black African Americans, since 1619, you have been here as slaves. You are technically, psychologically, still slaves, as still getting played. This is your chance. Between now and the next Congress is your chance. Preferably you have this done by October, so that way voting rights can go through and they can't cheat. Everything that they are doing, Trump is saying that the Democrats are doing. It's rigged. Oh yeah, it's rigged because they won. No, it's rigged because you had rigged it, and if they won, that meant our rigging didn't work, is what Trump's really saying. Therefore, you can say he's not lying. And the choice is yours. Only persons who can bring this to a head. The international community does not believe have the backbone to do so, because they never do it when it's difficult. They only do things when it's easy. It's easy, like right after you seen George Floyd's head. You can't breathe. It's easy when you have Breonna Taylor, because it's violence. It's easy after, because you can see the violence. But to do this now, to march on Washington with 1 million people, to hold a traitorous president to task? Isn't that whole thing of white man don't have to listen to any law that a black man says or some shit? Well, this is white man's law holding white man to a situation, and if you can't balls it up. Your ancestors, just even 2 generations, took mules, whatever it fucking took, to get the civil rights passed. Now, save the country, prepare a better future for your kids, prepare a better future for all Americans, to reiterate the power and the glory of the United States of America, to make sure your voice is heard, that you still have power, even if it even seems infinitesimal. I'm putting in a 98% chance that black African American doesn't have the balls, doesn't have the courage. Because that's quite honestly the way you're viewed. Why did all those people hate me so much? Why I always talk shit across 2 commands? It wasn't because I was incompetent or I wasn't really good at anything or I wasn't really intelligent. It was the exact opposite. And then they get you to attack people like me because I'm the greater threat. Because I can see their bullshit. They attack people. They get you just like to attack people like Malcolm Nance, to attack a civil rights lawyer, to attack a police officer, to attack you going to get a job. You're like, oh, you don't do that. Shit. Niggas don't be doing that. That's white people stuff. Oh, you want to go ride horse? Oh, white people do that. You can't do that. Oh, you want to be an engineer? White people do that. You can't do that. Oh, you want to learn? White people do that. You can't do that. You've been taught for generations. Hold yourself down. And then you get violent for those who try to. Then you know. Here's your point. Charlemagne, hip hop. Here it is. The buffet sits in front of you. But the fork and knife that is to be eaten, to enjoy it, is made out of courage. Sustained, collective courage. True courage. Because these people are going to kill you. They're going to try to kill you. But you're going to have to stand strong and not get overly violent. Because they want to turn this place into pure chaos. Cluster B, Narcissism 101. Get you to react and then blame you for their violence. It's going to take courage. Oh God, it's going to take courage. I'll be honest with you. Most of the world, to include Africa, we don't really believe you have it. We don't really believe the Democrats have it. I don't believe it. But I still always hold up hope. Fighters fight. It's my nature, I guess. You can be pissed off at me not being black enough. Well, obviously, you know who I am now. Doesn't fucking matter to me. Who are you? He's standing up for justice. He's standing up to finally get to be part of the state, to uphold the Constitution that they blew off the 14th Amendment, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment for generations. To finally say no, enough is enough. America is an ideal and an idea. It is an idea of the ideal, and we will uphold that ideal for all Americans. And for the world. For if you do not uphold and hold these traitors to account, the Republic will have fallen. Man or mouse, what say you are? Woman or mouse, what say ye are? By what doth you do? Slava Ukraine, glory to democracy, and may the flag forever wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.